Okay, we are live on both Instagram and on YouTube right now. Welcome back. Welcome back to our daily live feed. As you guys are getting logged on, if you'd like to come work with me, suitsandposing.com is where you have to go. We do hair, makeup, suits and posing, all the fun stuff when it's competing. There's Devyn. She just joined. Welcome, you guys. I'm going to give this a second for everybody to get logged on. And then Devyn, if you can just request to be added on live. Yes, I'm dressed up because I was just shooting content. So y'all get me looking decent today. Let me see. I think I could actually add you on too. Let's see. No, you have to request me. So yeah, request to go live with me, Devyn. And I'll pull you on. There it is. There we go. Thought I hit it. Maybe not. There we go. I did. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Cool. Yay, you look pretty too.
I had to work today.
I love it. I was like, I should warn you or something. Like, I don't normally look like this. I'm normally running in from the gym or something like that. You know what I mean? How are you doing?
Good.
Good. You got a new job, right?
Yeah, I did. I actually working at an IV hydration clinic, one of those bougie IV places.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
You mentioned that at the Arnold. Is that relatively new? Like they just opened it?
My place they just opened, but it's I guess fairly new. They're kind of getting around to doing it in other places. I've seen them before.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm looking back and forth. We've got girls on YouTube too, but those of you that are on YouTube, you should be able to hear Devyn talking. She is on our Instagram channel right now. So there's somebody Aurelia's getting married this weekend, so she's over here on our YouTube. She's getting married this weekend. I love it. Anyways. So yeah, I wanted to bring you on because I figured you could probably go into this a little bit more in depth than what we did the other night, talking about the Caribbean Grand Prix and all of that. So, why don't you give me an idea of maybe some of the feedback that you've been hearing from judges and judging panels and stuff as far as criteria for wellness, like in every aspect, as far as physique, what they're looking for, as far as, presentation, what they're looking for. And just things that maybe people are doing incorrectly, even on, at every level, at the NPC up to pro level.
I mean, I think the biggest issue is people are taking the criteria and making what they want out of it. The criteria is stated and they're following the criteria, and people somehow just are not grasping the concepts of what everything is. Sorry, my cat is
Is that your cat?
That's my cat. I
love it. That's okay. I don't feel so bad because my dogs do that, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's stated on NPC News Online is the criteria for wellness. Mm-hmm. So it's asymmetry, more developed lower body than upper body. The conditioning is on par with bikini. Mm-hmm. But I think people are just running in all kind of directions with it, and I guess in the beginning I understood why it was so confusing, but now that we've had a year of wellness to happen, we've had an Olympia that happens, I think it's kind of more understanding of what the criteria is.
Yeah.
So, like my zoo.
They all came to play tonight. I love it. Well, I can say probably one of the things that I've noticed on the local level is I do think that the criteria is getting a little bit better as far as when the first year or so, a lot of people were showing up out of shape, thinking it was basically like an out of shape bikini competitor. We don't really see that much anymore, obviously there's also going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some girls that just don't show up knowing what the criteria is and things like that. But in general, I'm seeing that on the local level, we're seeing that. It's not, people are understanding you have to have more muscle than the typical bikini competitor, that kind of thing. As we move up in the ranks, I tend to think what I'm seeing a lot from wellness competitors is that they're just trying to pack size on in general. And that's one of the things that I think is a tricky trap to fall into. I'm seeing people just thinking they just got to keep getting bigger and keep getting bigger and keep getting bigger. In reality, that's more, when you end up doing that, you're crossing more into like the women's physique category, like, because it is a more muscular division, just less conditioning the women's physique when you start getting that big.
Right. And I think that's the problem, is that they're looking at, first of all, we're looking at stage pictures. Stage pictures are not accurate depictions of what we look like in real life.
That's right.
So that's problem number one, is that if you're not sitting there and you're not seeing it live, then you really don't know exactly what athletes look like. So, and sometimes, depending on the photographer, sometimes they look softer, sometimes they look harder, just, depending on what settings they're using, what cameras they're using, filters, stuff like that. That's all going to make a difference on how somebody looks.
And the lighting, too. Like, that was one of the things that I noticed from the Arnold. It cracked me up when people would be posting, like, that they look so much better at finals. I'm like, no, the lighting was just more hard at finals, whereas at prejudging, it was a filled light, it was an expo hall, that kind of thing. So there's light everywhere, versus on stage at the finals, you had those direct spotlights, which creates more shadows and makes you look harder. It makes you look like your conditioning is better, when in reality, it's actually the lighting.
Yeah, and a lot of times you see these pictures of these photographers, and they take like a still shot, and I'll see people and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like her glutes were striated, like that's how much conditioning they had." And it's just like, but honestly, like, you may have seen like a side angle of someone, you may have seen them in the middle of a transition, and they look striated there, but that's not what the judge is seeing.
Right.
And sometimes, like, the conditioning you see as backstage, how you pose, how you flex is going to make you look one way, but how you look on stage when you're presenting yourself is completely different.
Absolutely.
I can tell you for sure that there are a bunch of us backstage. If we flex our quads, you'll see striations in our quads because we're flexing them. But when you're on stage, you're not flexing your quad, so you're not going to see it. And so that's another thing that people don't understand. You see these Instagrams when people are purposely flexing for pictures or videos or stuff like that, but that's not how we present ourselves on stage.
Yep, that's true. That's very true.
And that's the thing with, like you said, like on the amateur level, people are coming in not conditioned, thinking that they're wellness athletes, and that's not what it is. It's not a deconditioned bikini athlete.
Right.
Like, you have to have muscle there, and you can't really tell how much muscle you have until you get conditioned.
Yeah.
Like, you need it. I don't know why people are trying to make wellness like an outside bodybuilding division. It's like every other bodybuilding division.
Yeah.
You condition yourself down, and then you fill out for show.
Yep.
And that's how you place yourself, because they'll get feedback from a judge whenever they compete that, like, oh, like, you're too big, and they're like, oh, well, I need to go to wellness then. Like, no, you're too big because you're not conditioned enough.
Yeah, there's a difference.
You have too much muscle mass.
Yeah, there's a difference. And I will also say this too, like, it can be confusing as far as getting that feedback. Like, when you hear you're too big, some people will automatically think I am too muscular. It's no, you have too much body fat on you. You need to bring yourself down a little bit more. I get that quite a bit when I have newer competitors that come and see me and ask me about questions, if they should go to bikini or if they should go to wellness, that kind of thing. I'm like, well, when you look like this, how you are now, before you are stage lean, yeah, you look like you could be wellness. But I'm telling you, once you drop another 10 pounds, you're not going to be that thick. And women need to understand that we drop the majority of our weight from our hips and our thighs and our butt. Like, when we diet down, that's where we hold our fat. So, when we get to that stage lean, you're not actually that big anymore. So, when you get there, you have to understand what the difference is. And then once you're there, like you said, once you get down to that actual stage leanness, then you got to fill it back out. And then you got to start pushing that water, pushing that food, all that kind of stuff too. You actually have to get to the point where you're a little bit past what you should be on stage, and then fill it out from there. That's actually a mistake I see a lot of girls make. They think that they have to come in a little bit softer. Well, if you have to come in a little bit softer from your conditioning, that's just a matter of eating a little bit more on show day. You know what I mean? Still come in shape, and then you can fill out past where you thought you needed to be once you're there. You know. What are some of the pitfalls that you see when it comes to presenting yourself on stage? Like you mentioned, like when girls are backstage, they can be flexing and things like that. What are some of the other, some of the mistakes girls are making when it comes to their presentation on stage?
Mainly just not paying attention to their shape. That's the biggest issue. They're posing because they want to show off their size, or they even want to pose to try to make it look like they're bigger than what they are because they're lacking size. And in doing these poses, they're completely neglecting their shape.
Yeah.
Like this is still a very feminine division. This is not like theater where the poses are very rigid and angular. Like we still want soft, flowy looking poses, but you have to still have like that S shape to you whenever you're in all your poses. And people they may have like good quads, so they pose just to show how massive their quads are. And it's just like your shape is gone. Like you have no shape.
That's right.
And that's one of the bigger issues is knowing how to pose yourself for the division and not just focusing on one aspect of your physique.
I see that a lot. That's one thing that I correct a lot on girls with wellness is that you probably do this too, because I know you pose girls too. So they'll come to me and they'll be squatting into their front pose or their quarter turns because it makes their quads look bigger. It's like, okay, that does make your quad look bigger, but guess what? It also makes your waistline look bigger too. And in reality, it doesn't help you. It actually hurts you because it takes away from that S curve. And then now all of a sudden you look like a block, so you have to remember you still need to have that waist. We talked about this with the Caribbean Grand Prix, Barbara, she was probably the smallest competitor on stage, but she had the best shape. She had the best overall shape, front to back, top to bottom. And that matters. That's the first thing as a judge. That's the first thing their eyes go to is the overall flow and shape of the competitor. What would you say is probably the biggest mistake you see with the posing with the girls that you work with?
That side pose where they're bending that front knee, and I know why they're doing it. They're doing it to try to make their hamstrings pop out, to make their glutes look a little bit better.
Yep.
And like I say, they look like a Z.
Yep.
That's not what we want. We don't want hard angles like that whenever we're posing. We want nice S-shaped looking poses. We want it to flow. We want it to look feminine. And the more angular you get, the less feminine it looks.
Yes.
And it just looks like you're trying to pose.
Yep. It looks like you're trying too hard. It looks uncomfortable. Yep. And that's something too, like I try to tell people, like as a wellness competitor, you're honestly posing very similar to bikini. There's a few little changes with your upper body and things like that. What makes the difference is the amount of muscle that you have. It's not the pose, it's the amount of muscle. If a wellness competitor, a true wellness competitor, did their side quarter turn and put it next to a front pose of a bikini competitor, they would be the same. The difference would be the amount of muscle. The difference would be the amount of muscle on the wellness competitor versus the bikini competitor. It's not the pose. And it's kind of the same thing with the back pose too. I see a lot of mistakes happen with the back pose with wellness. What is something that you see?
Whoever's riding the horse, that's number one thing. Everyone wants to ride a horse in their back pose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you even looked at this in the mirror and seen what you look like?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's why they're the same reason they're doing it, to try to make themselves look bigger.
Yep.
And
in other words, they're trying to squat, right? They're trying to squat.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're squatting. They're turning their legs way out. They're pushing their hips too far back, leaning over, and they look like they're on a horse.
Yeah.
One
of the things that, and I see this too, if a girl is unbalanced in the back, with wellness, you still have to have a balance between your glutes and your legs. Again, going back to Caribbean Grand Prix, you have girls that are glute dominant, and then you have girls that are leg dominant. And there are ways to pose to fix that. Not completely, not 100%. You got to try to balance your physique and things like that. But what would you do with a girl that maybe she's glute dominant? How would you get her to be a little bit more balanced?
Like, for instance, I'm a little bit more glute dominant. So in my back pose, I do, turn my toes out a little bit, and I do flare my quads a little bit in my back pose to kind of even out my legs to my glutes.
Yep. So the opposite would be true then if you got somebody that is leg dominant, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So those are the things that you should, as a competitor, maybe you shouldn't be able to see that. I would hope that you'd be able to see that. But you should have somebody that you're working with that can see that. You should have a posing coach that can see that. You know, I see that a lot. I'm like, I look at girls on stage, I'm like, man, they have a way better, and this is pros, like they have a way better physique than what they're actually showing. I'm like, just a couple of little teeny tiny tweaks that would make a huge difference. So that's, for me, that's one of the things that's frustrating. And the reason why it's frustrating for me too with the pros is because I know that the amateurs are looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking up at that and they're saying, I got to do that because that's how I need to look. When in reality, that's not the case, you know? So I want to see more consistency with posing. Now, I think that over the last year, really the last 6 months or so, we've seen a whole lot more consistency with posing from wellness. You know, the front poses are getting to become more mandatory kind of front poses.
Yes.
The side, I would say the quarter turns are getting a whole lot better with the bending and things like that as well. Maybe, is there anything that you'd like to see become a little bit more consistent with that?
I mean, I think it's just people just paying attention, first of all. Finding yourself a posing coach who knows how to pose wellness is a big thing. Like, just because, I mean, everybody's got their niche. Like, and just because someone's a posing coach for figure doesn't mean they're going to be a good posing coach for wellness. People need to, you know, it's about paying attention. It's about following the division, following how things are going to change. Because you're right, the way we pose in our front pose, that's not how it was in the beginning.
Mm-mm.
They changed the way they want us to pose in our front pose because as the division grew and as it started to like evolve, the judges started deciding what they wanted to see.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And it's just like anything else. Like, you know, wellness has only been around for a couple of years now, but you know, the same thing has happened over the course of the last 12 years with bikini. You know, when you look back at how girls in bikini used to pose when it first started, it's completely different from what it is now. You know, so it's the same thing, and it's almost like it's on a faster pace when the division first starts. Like the first couple of years, things have changed a lot. You know, really from that first set of wellness shows and things like that. And even the suits and things are changing. Like I said, the pie plates are going away. Like we're not seeing a whole lot of pie plates anymore. And I'm thankful for that. So, you know, those are the kinds of things we have to pay attention to.
Yeah. I mean, and even you look at where wellness originated, you know, out in Brazil and stuff like that. And you even look at the way it was done there to the way how it's done in America, and it's different.
That's right.
Because the division is evolving, and you have to evolve with the division.
Yep.
And that's another issue that I think some people have is they keep wanting to pull this back to, well, this is how wellness started. This is what the division is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's going to change. It's going to evolve. You evolve with it, or you step out of it.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something too that I'm kind of happy is happening. Like a lot of the posing in wellness when it first started was very over the top and flamboyant. And I'm okay with people kind of expressing their personality. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes something that actually detracts from the physique, it's a hard thing. Like the twisting and twirling on stage and things like that.
And I tell you, I'm not going to say who it was, but I watched the morning pose. And I couldn't even pay attention to her physique because she flipped her hair 10 times in her routine. I counted. I went back and counted because I couldn't stop looking at how often she was flipping her hair. And I'm like, I don't even know what you look like anymore.
Yeah.
Because all I'm seeing is you messing with your hair like every 2 seconds.
That's right. That's right.
Like, and that's another issue. Is like people are just getting too much. They're overcomplicating it. They're trying to emulate how wellness is or was in Brazil, and it was a very much a production down there, and that's how it is. But that's not how it's turning into here.
Right.
You know, they want to see more of your physique. I've actually heard judges say, "Stop doing X, Y, and Z in your routine. It's distracting."
Yeah, and I agree, and I think because this is more, I guess it's more bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Like when you go to Brazil and things like that, it's more of a show. You know, it's more of a, like when you think of like WBBF, that kind of thing. It's not like that. It's very like we're actually comparing physiques. Like, yes, your presentation is important, don't get me wrong, but it's to show your physique in its best light. It's not to have a show, not to have your own little carnival. You know what I mean? Like, it just there's a point where it becomes too much. And I think that's the case in every division, not just wellness. I think that's the case in every division. I just think we see it a whole lot more in wellness just because, again, of the evolution. It's just become a little bit different over the last couple of years. And I'm liking the direction it's going for sure. What would be one of the few tips that you would give to an amateur who's first starting that is looking at the pros and trying to emulate that? And what would you say to them as far as what they should or shouldn't do?
First of all, tell them that don't necessarily compare yourself to pros, because pros have been doing this for years, decades. Some of us, we've been building muscle for a very long time. Even if not in bodybuilding, like I said, I was a dancer, a cheerleader, all through high school. Like, I've always been more muscular on my lower body, just from what I did when I was younger. So that's one thing, is that if you're just starting out and you need to build, you're going to have to take years to build up to that. And the other thing is don't compare yourself to someone who looks nothing like you. Like, if you're 5'2", don't compare yourself to Angela.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not the same physique. You're not going to look the same.
That's true. And a lot of times I found this to be like a trap for me when I was first starting. You don't know what you look like. You don't have a good idea of what your physique actually looks like. Like you said, you got to put yourself on stage first to figure that out. So I think it's really important to have, like we were saying before, a reputable coach that can say, like, listen, this is what your body type is. This is what you look like. This is what we need to do in order to make your lines look correct and things like that. It's hard to find good, reputable wellness coaches. It's hard. So what would be your recommendation as far as trying to find somebody that can do that for you?
I mean, just as far as first of all, you need to find a coach who's actually going to keep your health first.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing, because especially with everyone wanting to just grow at a fast pace, they have these coaches that are, pushing PEDs on people, pushing really unsafe dosages on girls, really messing with their health and stuff like that. That's number one, is that take the time to grow. Don't rely on stuff like that. It's not going to be a fast process, nor do you want it to be, because you can do some serious damage. And then, it all goes back to, mostly talking to people, reputation, finding people who are knowledgeable about the division. Like I said before, everyone's got their niche. Not everyone who is good at coaching one division is going to be able to coach wellness.
Right. That's true.
So, and right now it is kind of hard because it is new. Mm-hmm. So not any coach really has a ton of experience with it. So it's kind of a little bit of a hard process to try to find someone who knows a lot about wellness.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard because I do have girls that come to me quite often and ask about wellness coaches and somebody that I feel like would be reputable. And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, there's a handful of people that are okay, but a lot of times when these girls are brand new, the other part of that is that you don't want to, give them to somebody who, like you said, is good at producing pro results, but doesn't keep the health in mind. You know what I mean? Like there's that happens a lot. I see that a lot with this particular division, but in general too. Once you get some big name gurus and things like that, sometimes the health takes a back burner, right? And especially when you're brand new at this, that shouldn't be the case, and you should have somebody that is willing to work with you over time. And this is in any division, willing to work with you over time so that you can grow into the division. Like I see a lot of girls that, right now they're brand new competitors, so they could go to either wellness or they could go to bikini. They could go one way or the other, but they have to determine what direction they want to actually take their physique, how they want to live in their body every day, the kind of things that they actually want to do as far as training is concerned. Some girls are okay with pulling back on their training and being like, okay, I just want to do, I know several girls are like, well, I know if I keep going this hard, I'm going to have to move up. They don't want to do that, so they're okay with pulling back. And then there's other girls who they actually want to train a whole lot harder. So wellness is the right decision for them, but maybe not for a couple of years. They got to be okay with that. They got to find a coach that's going to be like, yes, you can do it in a couple of years. You know what I mean? And not try to press them on stage if they're not ready for that yet. For somebody that's
talked about this before about like taking time, because you see a lot of people on Instagram and people want to brag about their first national show, they went pro and they've done all this in X amount of time, and that's great and all, but that's not the norm. Those people are the exception.
That's right.
And everyone wants stuff and they want it right now. And they have to be patient in the sport, because that's going to come with a price, whether you like it or not. And a lot of times it's not talked about what price comes with that.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about it. Last year, I ran myself into the ground trying to go to Olympia. I'm not going to lie. It was not the best decision.
Yep.
I did not always keep my health in mind, because I knew I wanted to do this and I was willing to do whatever I needed to get there.
Yep.
So I did 7 shows.
Yep.
It wasn't smart.
Yeah.
But at least I'm able to talk about it and I'm able to say look, I messed my body up to the point to where I had to take the off season. My body would not respond, and I kept retaining water and all this stuff.
Yep.
That's the risk you take if you're gonna do stuff like that.
That's right. And like you said, you have to be honest about that too. You have to be willing to tell people, like, I took this protocol, I did this because I wanted this goal. Now let me ask you a question. Has your life changed because you've been an Olympia athlete, an Arnold athlete? Like, your everyday life, has anything changed?
No. People who go around me could care less that I went to Olympia.
That's right.
they do not give 2 cracks that I went to Olympia, that I went to Arnold.
Yep.
Like, my parents are just like, oh, we're proud of you. But other than that, people in the store don't know who I am.
Yeah.
They don't walk by me like, oh my God, Devyn, you went to Olympia.
Yeah.
I still have to go to work. I still have a job. I still have to go punch a clock. I still have to do a boss. I still have bills to pay.
That's right.
No, it didn't change anything.
Yep. I think it's really important to remember that, because so many people get caught up in when I hit this goal, then everything's going to be made and I'm going to be good to go, and I'm going to be an Olympia qualified athlete, and the sponsorships are going to start raining in, and blah, 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 and that shit don't happen.
I picked up sponsorships along the way, and I'm very happy for my sponsorships.
Mm-hmm.
But are my sponsorships paying my house note? No. Nope. And very few people actually make that amount of money from sponsorships to where they don't have to keep a regular job.
Well, if you notice, there are some relatively large names in our sport. They get good sponsorship contracts and things like that. Guess what they also do? They also coach. They also do posing coaching. They do the things that all of us normal people do, because they still have to generate revenue outside of, their sponsorship deals and contracts and things like that they do. So, thinking that your life's gonna be made in the shade because you decide to do this dream is not the truth. It's fantastic to reach a goal. It's fantastic to push yourself beyond where you thought you could go and get to that elite athlete level. I think it's amazing. It's definitely not something to sneeze at, but at the same time, it is not going to change your daily life. It's not going to change what you do day to day, and it's not going to make your life any better other than you knowing that you achieved that goal.
If anything, I work more now. I work more now that I went to Olympia and the Arnold than I did before.
Well, is it more expensive as a pro, or is it more expensive as an NPC athlete to compete?
Oh, as a pro for sure. Because one of the biggest reasons is because we don't have pro shows, like 5 pro shows within driving distance of me. Mm-hmm. So actually, in the state of Louisiana and the state of Mississippi, we have 0 pro wellness shows.
Yeah.
So I have to fly to every show I do. I have to pay for a hotel at every show I do.
Yep.
My makeup and hair artist that is a friend of mine that lives near me, if she doesn't come with me, I have to pay for hair and makeup at every show I do.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a much added cost whenever you're a pro.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't get any easier. It only gets harder.
It gets harder. It gets so much harder. Like people think I'm gonna work my butt off till I can become a pro and then I'm gonna be competing on the pro level. You have to then work 10 times harder
Yeah.
once you're a pro.
Because you're up against not like I said before, you're not up against just anybody. You're up against the genetic elite that also work hard. You know, you're up against the hardest people to be against. So it doesn't get any easier. It actually gets a whole lot harder. It gets more expensive. It becomes more time consuming. It becomes more all encompassing of your life. And again, it doesn't really change your day to day. It doesn't really change what you do with the rest of your life outside of this sport. So it's always really important to keep those things in perspective. Again, going back to, I think it's amazing. I think, again, I've been doing this sport for 13 years. So I wouldn't be doing it if I thought it was a shitty thing to be doing. You know what I mean? But you have to always keep it in perspective, and you have to think about the long term. You have to think about the stress that it puts on your daily life, the stress that it puts on your family, you know, the stress that it puts on your bank account and your home life. All of those things matter, and you do have to keep it in balance. And people always say, oh, you know, if you want to be the best at something, you have to be obsessed with it. Yes, okay, I get that, but at the same time, don't let everything that's really important in your life fall off for this lofty goal that's really not going to make a huge difference at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I have 3-year-olds. Like, he's still super dependent on me.
Yeah.
I can't just, you know, walk off and leave him and have him take care of himself. Like, I'm still a mom. I still have to work a job. I still have everyday stuff that I have to do.
Yep.
So,
and the good thing is if you remember that and keep that in the back of your head, that's actually going to instill a lot of really amazing things in him as he grows. You know what I mean? So there is a way to do this where it's beneficial for everybody. So just to always keep that in mind. You know, I say it all the time. If it weren't for this sport, I wouldn't have the way that I make my living if it weren't for this sport. You know what I mean? So it has its benefits, but you just have to remember to keep that brain in check more than anything else.
Yeah.
So we got off on a tangent on that, but I don't even know. We started talking about protocols and health and keeping balance and things like that. That's how we got there. So circling back around and getting us back on the topic. So what would be something, a piece of advice that you could give to somebody, no matter what level they're at? Maybe they're just starting out. Maybe they're going up to the pro level now. Maybe they're going up to the national level now. Maybe they're just moving up in levels or something. What is one piece of advice that you could give to somebody that wants to get into wellness, that wants to do this sport, that wants to do it the right way? What would be the number one thing that you would say to them that they should do?
No, don't chase someone else's physique.
Okay.
Like, your physique is yours.
Yep.
You need to build it based off of you, based off of your body, based off of what you're willing and not willing to do.
Mm-hmm. And
don't worry about anybody else.
Yeah, that's really good, because I see that happen a lot. I get girls that come to me with posing sessions. That happened today, where they go and they watch somebody else and they say, I want to do that because she did it. It's like, no, that's not how your body looks, though. You don't look like Ashley Kaltwasser. You don't look like Urishna. You don't look like Angela. You don't look like these people. So you have to remember where you are, and you have to remember the good things about you. You know, what makes you unique is what's going to make you successful, right? If you looked like everybody else, then you're not going to rise above anybody else.
Like, I remember whenever I was first starting out, we were at a seminar with Sandy, and I told Sandy, I was just like, Sandy, I was looking, of course, this was when wellness is very new. All I could look at was the Brazilian queens, and I told Sandy, I was like, Sandy, do I have to pose like that? Because I'm gonna look crazy if I try to do that on stage. Like, I really will.
Yeah.
I look like a spaz.
Yeah.
And she was just like, absolutely not. You pose what makes you feel comfortable and how your physique looks.
Yep, absolutely. We had a comment here on that part. Don't chase somebody else's body knowledge. That's truth. That's truth. And the girl that just mentioned that, I know she has a tendency to chase other physiques. Like, but you don't look like that. You're 5'9". You're not 5 foot like Ashlyn.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to get wrapped up in that, though. It really is, because you see these people are at the top, and you hope to get there one day. So you think, oh, I need to do this in order to get there. And you're going to wind up not even reaching that goal because you're doing things that don't fit your body.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to remember what's going to make your shape look the best. Let me look. I think we have a question here. Make sure I didn't miss something. Was this? Did you say the Olympians or pros that put on more of a show is the reason why they don't win or place better than they have? I think we covered that. I think they're basically asking if the Olympians or pros that put on more of a show that do too much with their posing, that they don't win or place better because of that. I would say yeah. I would say yes. I would say that
if it's distracting, then yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you can't pay attention to somebody's physique because of all the other stuff they're doing with their posing, then the judges aren't paying attention either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see if I have any other questions come in. Let me see. It creates amazing difference. I floats that track too. Yeah. Oh, she told me to be quiet about the whole Ashlyn thing. I want to leave it open for a couple of minutes and see if you have any other questions come in. I'm going to scroll through because I probably missed some comments. Let me see if I missed anything that came through. And then we'll go from there. What does it say? This one says, LMAO, you're a celebrity to me, Devyn. I love it. That's funny. Let me see.
I think somebody was asking about the whole size issue.
So do you think wellness will go the way of men's open bodybuilding, lower bodies getting bigger and bigger to the point where it might become unsustainable?
No.
There you go.
No. As long as I'm telling you, Sandy is going to put a rein on that real quick.
Yeah.
And for instance, and this is why we had this whole discussion about a shape versus size, because if you look at a lot of the overall winners from all these national shows, they were not the biggest on stage.
That's right.
If you look at Barbara, she was not the biggest on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest on stage.
That's right.
Yep. And it's because they're going to go after shape over size any day of the week.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what I mentioned in my post the other day, that a lot of people are missing this point. They just say, I need big glutes, I need big quads. And it's just like, but how is that fitting your body? How is it making your shape look? Mm-hmm. And when somebody first walks out, they're not looking at you as one piece. They're not, the judges aren't going to look like, as you walk out and be like, ooh, quad.
Yeah.
They're looking at, first of all, you from top to bottom and how you look overall.
Yep.
And they want to see a nice shape to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I think a lot of people are missing. And I hear it all the time at shows. And when they're like, oh, well, that girl should have won because her quads are bigger. And it's just like, okay, what about the rest of her?
Yeah. She's got a big, thick waistline, or she's got big boulder shoulders, or whatever, things that are not part of the criteria. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned it before as well. My very first national show, Sandy has mentioned this at workshops. I'm just kind of reiterating what she said. She said, Devyn, you walked out. You had the most impressive physique on that stage. I thought you were going to win. I said, there's your winner right there. She said, it wasn't until I talked to the rest of the judging panel, they said, but she's not wellness. Mm. Because I was symmetrical from top to bottom. My upper body and my lower body matched. Yeah. And I was little to conditioned. Yeah. And so that's the other thing, is just because you have the most impressive physique on stage doesn't mean you're the best fit for that division. Right. That's right. That was actually a question that came in over here. It was like, I know many compete in both wellness and bikini. Is that more NPC, local, national? I don't see it happen at nationals at all. So, and it does happen at local level. That's like what we were talking about before. After, doing a couple of shows that way, you should know which direction you should be going. They're very different physiques. So it should not be something that continues. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with crossing over when you're first starting out. And like we talked about before, figuring out, which direction you actually want to build your physique, that kind of thing. But once you've done that, once you've done one or two shows with crossovers, I kind of feel like at that point you should decide which direction you want to go. Right. Let's see.
What's this dumb social celebrity? How do you know if you're ready for the stage? That's what your coach is for. Your coach should be able to tell you if you're ready or if you're not. And then like hair flipping. Yeah, hair flipping is way too much for some people, for sure. Comparisons to
Get your opposing coach. Get your opposing coach.
That's right.
Opposing coach will tell you not to flip your hair that much.
That's right. Because it detracts. Absolutely.
I really don't understand this whole thing about how, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but just because somebody poses well on stage does not make them a good posing coach.
That's true.
Just because they've been to a national show and placed does not make them a good posing coach.
Yep.
Even if they're a pro, doesn't make them a good posing coach.
Right. Teaching and doing are two very different things. They're two very different things. Like they talk about Michael Jordan all the time, how he was the worst manager for a basketball team ever, and yet he's one of the the greatest basketball player in the league ever. Barring like LeBron James and all that, but he was terrible at actually managing teams because they're two completely different skill sets. Just because you're good at playing a sport doesn't mean you're going to be good at coaching it or teaching it or anything like that, and vice versa. Vice versa. You could be shitty yourself at posing, but you could be a great posing coach. I've seen that. It's rare, but I've seen that happen. I have seen it happen. I mean, you have guys that pose girls. So, and vice versa. So guys can't walk in heels, but they can pose girls that are posing in heels. Some of them.
I know we had this talk already about posing coaches.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice.
But there's a certain flow that a man, I believe, or let's not do all of them. Majority of men cannot teach a woman flow and walking in heels to look the way we're supposed to look.
Right.
That's true. Honest.
That's true. One question that came in was they asked if you picked the color for your Arnold suit or if I did.
It was a joint effort.
It was.
We were sticking with purple, but then there was, inspiration from other suits that we used, but we didn't do exactly what we saw. We fit me, and it turned out.
Yeah, because your Olympia suit was similar in color. We just put the colors together differently for your Arnold suit. So once you find a combo that works, then you just play with it. So that's kind of what we did. So it was a combo. It was a combo.
This is why you work with an amazing suit designer.
There you go. I like it. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And then it becomes, like we talked about before, you focus on you and your physique and not somebody else and what they brought.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. So I think that is a good place to wrap up. So thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. And we got rid of your menagerie in the back. They started, meowing and barking,
Yeah, calm down now. Thank Jesus.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to do this more often. I am going to log off of Instagram first, and then we'll log off of YouTube, and y'all can come back and watch and replay. So have a great night, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye, guys.